they are trans age, I do wonder sometimes whether the left hears itself. So, over in Florida,
Okay, can I address this argument real quick? Okay, let me start with this, okay? Every single person on the planet, every single person on this planet believes in trans age, okay? To start with. All of us think that trans age is real, okay? The issue that these people have is... All right, Benny Ben, what are you talking about over here? I think this was yesterday.
Well, folks, as you know, there's a clip of me that once went viral, all about me asking a young woman why she couldn't be 60. She was arguing, of course, that a man could be a woman. So I said, well, you're 21. Why can't you be 60? Well, now people are actually doing this. They're actually claiming that they are trans age. I do wonder sometimes whether the left hears itself. So, over in Florida...
Okay, can I address this argument real quick? Okay. Let me start with this, okay? Every single person on the planet, every single person on this planet believes in trans age, okay? To start with. All of us think that trans age is real, okay? The issue that these people have is they don't actually use their brain when they're engaging with the question, and to be fair, people on the left has super muddied the water on what it means to be trans, okay? When we talk about what a trans person means, okay, hopefully, if we're still in the world of reality, okay, in the world of reality, a trans person's brain could be sexed differently than their body, right? So if that is the case, you're not just randomly identifying as something. There is a fact of the matter about the state of your brain, okay? When I talk about the trans age thing, when we talk about age is typically a signifier for other things in your life. For instance, when you hit a certain age, you have a certain amount of development. When you hit a certain age, then you're allotted a certain amount of rights when you get to the age of majority, right? So for instance, at 18 years old, you have the right to own property, to go have sex, to go do whatever the fuck you want to do at 18 or 19 in some states. I think in Nebraska it's 19, right? However, in the United States, we recognize that some people's brains don't actually mature that way. In a way, we kind of treat people with severe mental disability as like trans-aged down to a younger age. We might treat somebody that has severe autism or crazy Down syndrome at 30 years old like they're only 6. You might actually do that. Or we might say this person is aged 25, but because of a developmental disability, this person is treated essentially as a 15 or 16-year-old. Like this already happens in the United States where we revoke rights from people or we assign permanent guardians to somebody because their brain hasn't matured as much as like the age they have, the age that their actual body is. So when somebody's like, oh, like trans age, it's so stupid, we kind of do treat people as different ages based on like developmental delays or other sort of problems, okay? However, you can't just say that you identify as a different age, okay? Because that doesn't make sense, right? Age is typically, if it's not gonna be a signifier for like actual like physical development, age is just it's just a number. Age is it's an actual thing that measures like how many times the Earth has gone around the sun while you exist on the planet. You can't just identify that away, right? I've been alive for 11 years. I can't identify as being alive for 30 years. It doesn't make sense. It's nonsensical. It's like identifying somebody with 4 or 5 arms. You can't do that. But for a trans person, the argument is that their brain is actually sexed differently. Their brain is sexed differently than their body. So it's not just that they're identifying as trans, it's that they are trans. Now, whether or not you believe in trans people, that's fine. If you say, oh, well, I don't believe that trans people are real. I don't believe that, I don't believe any of that. Like, that's fine. If you don't believe in trans people, you think it's all fake bullshit, that's fine. But at least engage with the argument as it is. That's the argument as it is presented, all right?
A gay parade has now been canceled. Why? According to Local 10, officials in a Florida city have canceled the gay pride parade and restricted other pride events to people 21 years and older in anticipation of Governor Ron DeSantis signing a bill meant to keep children out of drag shows.
How are brains sexed differently? Could you elaborate? The argument goes that your brain has some sort of sex. Most people's brain sex aligns with their body sex. Your gender identity, your gender expression are the same. That's like most cis people. But for trans people, for whatever reason, something has happened to sex their brain differently. Where their brain is sexed as female, even though their body sex is male, right? Now, whether that's actually true or whether there's other like things at play, obviously is still to be researched. Like this is all debated. Like trans stuff is like pretty new in terms of research and everything. Nobody's got a concrete answer. But that's like in my opinion, that is the strongest argument for the existence of trans people. The self-ID stuff and all that other nonsense is just that. It's nonsense. It's garbage. Like, who cares?
Pride Alliance of the Treasure Coast posted Wednesday on Facebook the decision to change this Saturday's Pride Fest events was made after multiple conversations.
How are brains sexed differently? Could you elaborate?
I just did. Dumbass.
Lucy officials. So why?
Except not anymore, Destiny. The mainstream talking point is that you don't need gender dysphoria to be trans. Whoever says that is a fucking retard. Ignore them. Who cares?
The DeSantis administration was cracking down on lewd displays before children. They basically said no assless chaps or displays of dildos, and in front of the kids. And the gay pride parade, instead of being like, okay, we'll fly our rainbow flags and we will celebrate gay marriage, they're like, nope, we're going to pull the parade. Do you hear yourselves, guys? I mean, I'm fine with it. That's what you want to do. But it seems like you're kind of like, is that if the purpose of the gay pride parade is the assless chaps and the simulated sex act in front of kids, and so you have to cancel it to the extent that like a law that says you can't sexually indoctrinate kids affects the parade? What does that say about your parade, really? I mean, meanwhile, other things that I like. The trans movement obviously is going to have some radical ramifications for a lot of other things in American life. One of those things,
the war is this law is probably phrased in such a way that it's going to be like it has a nihilist overreach. It's going to be my guess, but I haven't seen that particular law in Florida. But
obviously, is going to be the question of age. So you'll recall that a few years back, a very, very famous exchange between me and a college student, in which this college student took the position that men can be women, women can be men, and I asked this college student her age. And she told me her age. She said she was 20 or something, 21. And I said, why aren't you 60? And this, of course, went viral because I was saying, like, you can't change your age and you can't change your sex. So what are you talking about here? Let me ask you this. Okay, I won't ask you how old. I will ask you how old you are, okay? Because you're young enough that it's probably not insulting to ask you. So
I'm 22, so I'm probably only naive, right?
No. Why aren't you 60?
Could you not say time is perceived faster or slower for people in their head,
Why
which is
aren't
why
you
they feel like they're older/younger?
But we usually have a term for that, maturity. Like age is pretty tied in, right? You can't identify as 4 feet tall or 9 feet tall. You can't identify as having 7 legs. You can't identify as being a different, like, years you've existed on the planet, right? How does Ben not realize how embarrassing it is to bring up a dunk on a fucking college kid? I mean, that's how he made his early shit, right? Destiny, the corollary of your trans age argument is that trans must then be a disease to be accepted. You can call it a disease if you want. You can call it whatever. People typically don't because it's, I mean, it's an abnormality, of course. People don't because that's like a normatively loaded word. And I think you're trying to normatively load it, so you're not trying to trap me because you're interested in like an actual like intellectual grasp of the topic. You're just trying to get me to like admit that it's a disease. But like, sure, like let's say that I grant you that. Okay, sure, being trans is a disease. That makes you even more retarded for saying people shouldn't be allowed medication to treat it, right? Like if you try to push that hard as a conservative to get somebody to say like, oh, then isn't being trans an illness? Like, yeah, it is true. It's an illness that's treated by routine surgery. Like, okay. Or are you telling me now you do want to recognize it as an illness, but you don't want to do anything about it, which is even more retarded. It's the most retarded position, right?
60.
Is it?
And why can't you?
Ben Shapiro is a better man than me. There is no shot I would be able to watch videos of myself dunking on like randos from 8 years ago and not cringe into another. Oh, I recognize this. I feel like I've watched this video before. I probably watched this video 6 years ago.
Okay, I won't ask you how old. I will ask you how old you are, okay? Because you're young enough that it's probably not insulting to ask you. So
I'm 22, so I'm probably only
I'm
19,
trans
right?
age. Totally explains why I'm racist and sexist. I'm a 80-year-old man in a 20-year-old's body. Justified finally.
okay, because you're young enough that it's probably not insulting to ask you. So
I'm 22, so I'm probably only naive, right?
No. Why aren't you 60? Why aren't you 60?
Is it?
She hasn't, because the problem is she doesn't have a fully developed thing. Like, why aren't you 60? Well, because there's an underlying fact of the matter for my age, right? But there's also an underlying fact of the matter of the sex of the brain. That should be the argument, right? Like you said, this is a super viral video, yeah.
And why can't you identify as 60? What is the problem with you identifying as 60?
It's not the same as gender. You can't just...
You're right. Age is significantly less important than gender.
Is it,
well,
though?
now I guess we've hit...
Is age significantly less important than gender? Like, if you could know one thing about a person, who did you f yesterday? And and you want to know if it's right or wrong, would it be more important to know the age or the gender? I feel like that's not the case that in all ages, or I'm sorry, in all cases, gender is more important than age. It probably depends a lot based on what we're talking about, right? Like, but I mean, like, I'm being a little obtuse now, but like, it's kind of silly to compare the two. Like, what's more important, your age or your gender? I don't know, that's kind of silly.
Hit the end of parody because now we have 60-year-old men identifying as 6-year-old.
Wait, someone in chat just said from a medical perspective. Even from a medical perspective, like, this person's kidneys are failing. Would you rather know their age or their gender? What, that doesn't, like, if they're 2 years old, that's a really big deal. If they're like 112 and they're like on their last legs, right? I don't know. It's just, it's a silly comparison, I think.
Old girls. This is a clip that was going viral on the Twitters of a 6-year-old man in Great Britain claiming that he is in fact a 6-year-old girl. Now, what's hilarious about this, and the reason why I put it in things I like rather than things I hate, is I think it does quite well expose the trans agenda. If this were a man claiming that he is in day 365 of girlhood, he would be getting all sorts of ad deals from Maybelline and Tampax and Bud Light. But since he claims that he's a 60-year-old man who's a 6-year-old girl, it's the age that really is upsetting people. It's the age that's troubling, not the fact that this is a dude claiming that he is a female.
Today is my first day of having my living room as my playroom. And Makoto is here with me, but I didn't have any friends over for the play date because it's COVID time. But
is anybody defending this? Like,
I'm having fun with Makoto, my cat, and with Franny, she's my baby. Anyways, I just wanted you to see I made a tutu with my sewing machine.
Oh no.
And it's for pretending to be a little fairy.
Oh no. Oh no. But here's the thing. Why not? Question to the left, why not? Why can't this 60-year-old man be a 6-year-old girl? Why not? You say he's a man who can be a girl. Again, day 365 of girlhood means that you're getting calls from the President of the United States. So when is the Prime Minister of Britain, not Rishi Sunak, who actually has his head screwed on straight on this, maybe some of the former prime ministers, well, why don't they call up this guy and congratulate him on becoming a 6-year-old girl? I mean, the good news is that, according to the left, this means that he is basically immortal because he can just keep identifying as a younger and younger person. He'll never die. That's very exciting. None of this ideology makes sense because it is all pagan crap and it has nothing to do with reality. Okay, time for some things that I hate.
I'm saying this out loud because I'm never going to do this, but this is such a good idea. Imagine doing a show. It would be so much fun to do a show like Fresh and Fit, but instead you just bring on guys instead of girls. You bring on like frat boys. Oh my God. There would be like an infinite number of ideas you could spin off in terms of like shit you could do on this. It would be so funny. Like when you go around the table, instead of asking like what's your body count and your relationship status, like imagine you go around and you ask like what's your height and your IQ for every single guy at the table. And then sometimes on episodes like Fresh and Fit, might bring out like a scale to like weigh girls. Imagine a guy's like 6 foot, and then you bring out like in the middle of the episodes like we're gonna measure your height for all of you. And then it would be so much fun to go. You know how Sneeko says shit like oh, name 3 countries. It would be so funny to go around a table of frat boys and be like, I want you to calculate in your head with no calculator what is 17.5% of 100, right? And like see how many of them can actually get it right as you go around the table. Or like you're traveling 80 miles. Or wait, what's the one question that f***s everybody up? How long does it take you to travel 60 miles if you're going 60 miles an hour? Is that the one? Like it would be so fucking hilarious to do this with a bunch of frat boys. Oh wait, what? Did I just get my first contestant? Oh no.
You're going 70 miles per hour. How long would it take you to drive 70 miles?
70, nigga?
Oh, why? Why 70? Explain to the camera why.
Because 1 times 70, 70.
Well, who the f said anything about 1? Where did 1 come from? You're going 70 miles per hour.
Oh, 1 hour.
You're going.
I feel like there's a video in a car where somebody does this for a long time. Oh my God, hold on. I'm sorry, I just have so many good ideas. Imagine you have like a soundboard where you push the buttons like Myron has, but all of the buttons are like quips from things like the women on The View say. That would be so f***ing good. God damn. Okay, sorry.
There is a human named Jules Hoffman. Jules Hoffman is a woman, but Jules Hoffman says that she is a they. According to Jules, the reason this is of relevance is because Jules Hoffman is one of the stars of a wildly popular YouTube channel for babies and toddlers called Songs for Littles. The host of this is apparently a person named Miss Rachel. Now, I've never watched this, nor would I expose my children to a woman who says that she is a they, not 3-year-old children. Nope. But this is what is it? So Miss Rachel used to be just a place where you would hear a cute song sung to your 3-year-old. Now it's
Dude, August's gonna hate me so much because he wanted me to watch this video. Now I'm getting hardcore distracted. I'm so sorry.
Alright, we're traveling from Logan to Boise, and I just proposed a math question to my beautiful wife, Chelsea. And the question, very difficult to calculate, is if you are traveling 80 miles per hour, how long does it take you to go 80 miles? Okay, what do you think, Chel? Let's go through the process. What do you think?
Well, if I run the mile in about 9 minutes.
Wait, what about the tire turning thing you were talking about? You think that affects it?
Well, I'm just guesstimating probably about, it turns about 400 times in a mile.
That's just calculate, like guessing calculations?
Yeah, I don't know how you would work that out.
It'd be tough.
Yeah, so I don't know, because if I run a mile in like 9 minutes, then, I mean, but that's when I'm out of shape. When I'm really in shape at like 7 minutes is when I'm like really in shape. And that takes me a mile. And we're going 80 miles. I'm running at about probably 10 miles per hour, if that.
Yeah.
And that's pretty fast for a human being, I think. But, I mean, it's got to take at least like 58 minutes or something.
58 minutes? It's pretty close.
To go 80 miles.
Do you want to know what the answer is?
What?
The weird thing is, what algorithm is she using in her head where she actually calculates it to be fairly close? Or is she just pulling that number out of her ass and she just happens to be closer than she ever really deserves to be for that calculation?
Think about 80 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So how long does it take me to go 80 miles if I'm traveling 80 miles per hour?
You are driving faster than a minute a mile.
Yeah, totally.
So I would whack 80 in half, and that's 40. Because, I mean, you're probably going 2 minutes a mile.
Just whack it in half.
Well, it depends on it. I mean, some cars' tires turn faster than others.
Yeah, definitely affects it.
Because, I mean, I think a truck probably is slower because it weighs more.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it also matters if your car's a stick or automatic.
Okay, Chal.
What?
Think about the term miles per hour.
MPH.
MPH. So if I say I'm driving 80 miles per hour, that means I'm going to go 80 miles in an hour.
No, you are not, because you are driving faster than a mile a minute. I can run 1 mile in 7 minutes, and that's a 10. Okay? So, I mean, that's booking it too.
Okay, so if I'm going 60 miles per hour?
Then it'll take about 30 minutes. I would just cut it right in half.
I'm trying to explain the answer, but...
Well, you are not making sense, because I make sense, you do not make sense. My car's tires may be they're kind of a little flat, so they may not move as fast as like a police officer's tires that are full, but I just...
Okay, Chel, the answer?
My tires are turning maybe, I'd say about 400 times per mile.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you the answer. You ready for the answer?
No, they gotta be like 1,000.
You ready for the answer? The answer to...
You don't know the answer.
I do know the answer.
You can guesstimate just like I guesstimate.
I'm not guesstimating. I'm using math and science. I'm using my own term. Okay, Chell. The answer to the question, how long does it take me to travel 80 miles if I'm driving 80 miles per hour? The answer is 1 hour. Your guess was close.
So say you drive 60 miles per hour at 60 miles. You want to go 60 miles at 60 miles per hour. Is that an hour?
Yep.
What about 40 miles at 40 miles per hour?
Then you will go 40 miles in 1 hour.
You cut that in half. You're going more than a mile a minute. Okay, let's time. Right now, let's time and see. It's not filming.
Uh-oh. Oh, can you stop filming? Uh-oh.
The place where you can learn about why gender is non-binary.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello, everyone. We're gonna have so much fun. I'm so glad you came today. Are you ready to sing? Are you ready to play? Hooray! It's time for songs for littles. Songs for littles. It's time for songs for littles.
Okay, so this is a lady singing. Okay, right? I mean, unless that is a man with a very high voice, which it is not. That is a lady singing. So what are the pronouns? So Hoffman uses they, them pronouns. And that's, I'm sure, very exciting for your tiny child who doesn't understand what the hell is going on. And yes, distinctions matter to small children and to everyone else in life. But now we have an entire piece in the Washington Post saying that you must expose your child to this or you're a bad parent. Quote, Hoffman is one of the stars of Songs for Littles. Using their niece and nephews, which they refer to as nibblings, as inspiration, Hoffman belts out tunes on pizza.
Nibblings? Is that what they said? Nibblings?
Said dinosaurs and the hokey pokey. The channel's most popular video has been viewed more than 290 million times. But the channel has come under fire recently after some parents took issue with Hoffman's identity, asserting falsely the show introduced the concept of they, them pronouns to their young audience. A video on TikTok criticizing the show has been...
When I see my kid walk through the door, I'm like, what up, my nibbler? Every time.
Viewed more than 400.
You know they made that name just because they wanted to say that, guaranteed.
Times.
These are people that rap to the songs with their windows rolled all the way up when they're driving through traffic. 100%.
Hoffman said the backlash was a surprise and sent them on a roller coaster of emotion as they waded through hundreds of TikToks and commenters, some critical and others supportive. Apparently, the show's star, Rachel Griffin-Accurso, educator and songwriter, announced she was taking a break from social media to address her own mental health after the fallout. Hurtful videos and comments, no matter how much attention they get, will not bring you what you want. Only love can do that.
Aww.
Oh, how radically exciting. Again, how about this? You should be screening pretty much everything your kid watches. The fact that there are people who wish to present themselves to your child in a guise that is deliberately confusing to your child, the fact that that exists means that you just have to police it harder. And parents who refuse to police this material for their kids should not be surprised when their kids become very confused about these things because they are inherently confusing, because they do not make sense, because they are not true. It turns out that Jules Hoffman is a woman, not a they, them. It's just amazing, amazing stuff. So we'll get to that. I think that Donald Trump should run for president of the United States. Not only that, the leading feelings that people have with regards to the possibility of a Trump-Biden rematch is exhaustion, which, frankly, I can't imagine why. I can't imagine why. There's a survey, again, from Yahoo News at YouGov, and it found that 38% of Americans chose exhaustion after being shown a list of 8 feelings and asked to select all that comes to mind when considering another Biden versus Trump campaign.
True.
And among registered voters, that number is even higher, 44%. The other numbers? Fear, 29%, sadness, 23%, hope, 23%, anger, 23%, excitement, 16%, pride, 8%, or gratitude, 7%. Yes, Americans are very positive about another Trump-Biden matchup. It's what the people want. They demand it. And this is one of the big problems that you have with the weakening of parties, counterintuitively. The weakening of both the Republican and the Democratic parties means that basically the bases of both parties and the more involved bases of both parties tend to have outsized influence compared to the rest of the American population, which means very often that candidates who are not wildly popular with the American public end up being the nominees of their parties. Trump, for what it's worth, is currently wrapping up a bunch of congressional endorsements. Now, you would imagine, listen, he's the former president of the United States. He's the Republican frontrunner. He should be. He's also the only major candidate to have announced thus far. You have Nikki Haley, who's announced, and you have Vivek Ramaswamy, who's announced. DeSantis is not yet announced. But Trump is racking up endorsements, particularly in Florida. Again, not a major shock, also because if you are a state or congressional politician, what you don't want is Trump attacking you. If Trump asks you for an endorsement, the safest thing to do is give it to him, because if you don't endorse DeSantis, DeSantis isn't going to attack you, but Trump will if you don't.
True.
So here's Fox News covering that.
I'll be asking everybody to support President Trump, and Ron DeSantis hasn't declared he's running for president yet. I think he's a great governor of Florida. So if I were Florida, I would give DeSantis a third term and everybody get behind President Trump.
You can't.
With us now, Congressman Carlos Jimenez, who was kind enough to take time.
Wait, he just said you can't. Our governor's term limited? I have no idea. Depends on the state. Gotcha.
Time to let us know where he's going and where he's heading and who he's supporting. Congressman, who is it?
Well, I'm announcing that I'll be supporting President Donald J. Trump for president in 2024. I think he gives us the best chance of winning.
Nope.
He had a solid track record as president, and yesterday at the dinner, he laid out a solid plan for the future and where we need to go.
Okay, so this idea that Trump gives Republicans the best chance of winning is belied by pretty much all of the polls at this point, as well as the fact that he already ran an election campaign against Joe Biden, and it didn't go amazing. He's not the president of the United States right now. Trump's team is focused in on Ron DeSantis like a laser beam. According to Rolling Stone, a Trump advisor says, quote, Team Trump does not just want to beat him. Team Trump wants to humiliate him, maybe more than they've ever wanted to humiliate anybody on the national stage. That is what is driving a lot of this. Now, the problem for Trump is that the angle that he's taking with regard to DeSantis is one that does not make the base particularly enthusiastic. He is currently attacking DeSantis with alacrity from the left, almost entirely from the left, because it's impossible to get to DeSantis' right. So instead, he's attacking him from the left. So over the weekend, Trump did a speech in which he ripped on DeSantis repeatedly. The important thing here is really not the attacks. The important thing is the crowd reaction. Listen to how quiet it is.
Oh.
Except you don't see that tabulation. We did much better in 2020 in Florida. I got 1.2 million more votes than your successful governor's campaign. You know that. We got 1.2 million. Sir, I'd love to have your support, sir. I'd love to have your support. I'm down at about 3. I'd love to have your support. All right, let's think about it. And it was like a rocket ship after I gave it. Otherwise, right now, you'd have a lawyer someplace looking for business.
Okay, and...
Well, wait, I feel like there was applause there. No? I mean, maybe not a ton, but there was some.
And the crowd is pretty much silent there.
Wait, what? Am I mishearing?
Million more votes than your successful governor's campaign. You know that. We got 1.2 million.
Maybe it was way louder for other claps, so it's like a... Oh, not after the diss? I guess, but...
Sir, I'd love to have your support, sir. I'd love to have your support. I'm down at about 3. I'd love to have your support. All right, let's think about it. And it was like a rocket ship after I gave it. Otherwise, right now, you'd have a lawyer someplace looking for business.
Okay, and the crowd is pretty much silent there. Because the reality is that the base, unlike when Trump was attacking everybody back in 2016, when nobody actually liked any of the other candidates, this is the dirty secret. Nobody liked anybody else who was running in 2016. And so Trump had a bunch of baked-in advantages. People actually like Ron DeSantis' record of governance. And so Trump has been relegated to attacking DeSantis from the left. He put out a statement, a lengthy statement, over the weekend, in which he said that Florida has now become among the worst states to live, or to find economic opportunity, or to work, or to retire, or to raise a family. No one believes this. No one. Okay, I moved my family.
Man, I've heard, I've only been here for a little bit of time, but I've heard a little bit on the radio, and I hear people complain on the internet as well. I thought that the cost of living in Miami has actually skyrocketed, such to the point that I thought even DeSantis has made statements about it. I thought that cost of living in Florida has actually gotten out of control in a lot of the major cities. I could be wrong, but I feel like I'd heard DeSantis mention that. Actually, wait, hold on. I don't know why I keep saying this. DeSantis, cost of living, Florida. This is back in February. DeSantis blames Florida's skyrocketing housing costs on Biden. Is it all the president's fault? Like, I feel like cost of living has gotten pretty high around here, but...
Family to Florida in large part because Governor DeSantis has done an excellent job. If Andrew Gillum were the governor of Florida, I don't know that I would move my family here. I didn't just move my family. My parents moved, my in-laws moved, 2 of my sisters and their families moved. There's a reason that over the course of the last several years, about 700,000 people have left their home states and moved to Florida. There's a reason why Florida is the fastest growing state in America, and it is not because it is a terrible place to live. This dog just does not hunt. It's a real problem for Donald Trump, actually, that it does not hunt if the issues matter at all. So DeSantis, for his part, he is finally starting to open up the guns on Trump, and he has a pretty good angle here. His angle here is that Trump blew it on COVID. That Trump was too weak on COVID, that Anthony Fauci is only a household name because Donald Trump appointed him and then left him in place and didn't actually have any control over his own policy because he didn't know what to do. So here was Ron DeSantis over the weekend saying, listen, when it came to COVID, I took control because that's what leaders do. They take control.
And to me, leadership is having the courage to make difficult decisions in the teeth of opposition and criticism. A leader must have the confidence to stand all alone if need be. And so for us, as I got into office, COVID presented that situation for us because we were in a situation, the 3rd largest state in the country, one of the highest percentage of elderly, economy based on tourism, which we needed travel to continue. So this situation was an existential threat to our state. But I made the judgment, leaders take the bull by the horns and make the decisions for themselves. They don't subcontract out their leadership to health bureaucrats like Dr. Fauci.
Damn.
That is going to be a very rich vein for attack from DeSantis toward Trump. Because he doesn't have to actually say anything about Trump. He can just say, listen, when it comes to actually formulating policy and being a leader,
finally, I will say, I mean, obviously I like Fauci more than Trump, but I don't like the fact that so many of you let Trump get away with that. Oh, I couldn't help it. It was the deep state. Oh, I couldn't help it, blah, blah. When these were his own appointees and he had the ability to change up at any point in time, the fact that you let Trump escape any responsibility so often by blaming the people around him when he could choose who's around him is such a position to take.
I was right on COVID, and you're attacking me from the left. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show can...
Although I will say, yeah, somebody in Rumble chat, YouTube chat, like, for talking about being a leader and having an economy based on tourism, fighting with Disney probably ain't it. That's probably not the best way to go there. Ronnie, what are you doing, man? Disney sues DeSantis and Oversight Board after vote to nullify agreement with Special Taxing District. Walt Disney Parks and Resorts on Wednesday sued Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and his hand-picked Oversight Board, accusing the Republican 2024 presidential prospect of weaponizing his political power to punish the company for exercising its free speech rights. The law, why the fuck? I understand you want to f around and make your, you know, have like your wave your big dick around for your constituents, but why would you, why would you want to go to court with Disney? Bro, what are you doing, little bro? Why would you want to go to court against Disney? Okay, these guys like single-handedly can like legislate the orbit of the moon. Okay, why the f would you want to take Disney to court? Jesus. The lawsuit was filed in federal court minutes after the board appointed by DeSantis to oversee Disney's special taxing district sought to claw back its power from the entertainment giant, voting to invalidate an agreement struck between Disney and the previous board in February, just before the board's dissolution. What they created is an absolute legal mess, okay? It will not work, said Martin Garcia, chairman of the DeSantis-picked Central Florida Tourism Oversight District Board of Supervisors. Wednesday's moves are the latest escalation in the fight between DeSantis and Disney as DeSantis moves towards a 2024 presidential bid. Disney responded by suing DeSantis, the board, and Florida Department of Economic Opportunity Acting Secretary Meredith Ivey, seeking to block the board's moves. The lawsuit characterizes Wednesday's vote as the latest strike in a targeted campaign of government retaliation orchestrated at every step by Governor DeSantis as punishment for Disney's protected speech. It says DeSantis' retaliation now threatens Disney's business operations, jeopardizes its economic future in the region, and violates its constitutional rights. Disney finds itself in this regrettable position because it expressed a viewpoint the governor and his allies did not like. Disney wishes that things could have been resolved a different way, the lawsuit says, but Disney also knows that it is fortunate to have the resources to take a stand against the state's retaliation. A stand smaller businesses and individuals might not be able to take when the state comes after them for expressing their own views. In America, the government cannot punish you for speaking your mind. The board's move Wednesday was expected, and board members in previous meetings had previewed its arguments over why it saw the agreement as invalid. In March, the board hired a team of law firms to represent the district in potential legal challenges with Walt Disney Parks and Resorts, signaling that DeSantis' appointees anticipated the fight was headed to the courtroom. Disney CEO Bob Iger hinted at the entertainment giant's case against the state when he told shareholders earlier this month that the company has a right to freedom of speech just like individuals do. The governor got very angry about the position that Disney took, and it seems like he's decided to retaliate against us, in effect, to seek to punish a company for its exercise of a constitutional right, Iger said. Is it Iger or Iger? And that just seems really wrong to me against any company or individual, but particularly against a company that means so much to the state that you live in. The fight now shifts, The fight now shifts to the courts, where Disney, in its 77-page lawsuit, is seeking an injunction that would block the board from exercising the power DeSantis and the Republican-led legislature sought to hand it. We are unaware of any legal right that a company has to operate its own government or maintain special privileges not held by other businesses in the state, DeSantis Communications Director Taryn Fensky said. This lawsuit is yet another unfortunate example of their hope to undermine the will of the Florida voters and operate outside the bounds of the law. I will say, I don't know how Pisco feels about this, but I actually do kind of feel like the little thing that Disney had set up seems like a little bit bullshit. It's just funny now that like Republicans want it to want to undo it because it's not benefiting them and their state ideologically anymore, I guess. But the year-long fight has strained what had long been a cozy relationship between Florida's government and the state's best-known employer and attraction of tourist dollars. DeSantis earlier this month suggested the state could build a prison or competing theme park on what had, for decades, been Disney-controlled property. The Florida governor's battle with Disney has become a flashpoint in the early stages of the 2024 Republican presidential primary. Former President Donald Trump and a slew of other candidates and potential rivals, including former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, have lambasted DeSantis for his actions, characterizing them as anti-business. After a hearing in which several business owners, including those who run restaurants and bars at Disney World locations, urged the board to work with Disney, Garcia said the board would seek to raise taxes to pay for its legal fees in evaluating and combating what he called 11th hour agreements. Because that's going to cost us money, we're going to have to raise taxes to pay for it, Garcia said. The Central Florida Tourism Oversight District Board of Supervisors, oh, that is true. Now, remember, when it comes to the federal government, when people say things like, oh, well, if we're doing war in Ukraine, we can't take care of the homeless. That's not true. Government dollars aren't really fungible. We can make more money as the federal United States government. We've got the Treasury, we've got the Federal Reserve. We have the ability to kind of like do a lot with our budget. That's a thing that we can do. Oh, wait, hold on. Cake. Does the viewers thing automatically add viewers from my different platforms? Is that what that's doing? Because if so, that's really cute. I just noticed that. However, while the federal government can do that, state governments cannot do that. State governments have to be far more responsible with their budgets than the federal government does, because for the state to raise money, they've got to do things like sell bonds and everything. They can't just print out whatever money they need. Their process for raising money is a little bit more complicated, and a state can't just spend like an insane amount of money. They've got to be more conscientious of it. So state dollars are a bit more fungible, although they do have some ways of raising money compared to the federal government, but. The money printer is only for the federal government, you know. Nikolai, wow, directly contradictory of your earlier statement that government doesn't have limitless resources. Nice. Does the statement I make now contradict that the government isn't going to be 5 to 10 years ahead technologically of every... Do I even respond to that? Am I going to get one guide by that YouTube comment? I'm not going to get one guide. Okay. The Central Florida Tourism Oversight District Board of Supervisors, the board named by DeSantis and packed with his allies earlier this year, took over the Reedy Creek Improvement District, the special taxing district that for half a century gave Disney control over the land around its Central Florida theme parks. But before the DeSantis selected board was in place, Disney in February reached an agreement with the outgoing board that seemed to render the board powerless to control the entertainment giant. The DeSantis administration was unaware of the agreement for a month and vowed retribution after it became public. The agreements Disney signed with the previous board ensured the company's development rights throughout the district for the next 30 years, and in some cases prevented the board from taking significant action without first getting approval from the company. One provision restricted the new board from using any of Disney's fanciful characters until 21 years after the death of the last survivor of the descendants of King Charles III, King of England. Its development agreement was approved over the course of 2 public meetings. This had to do with the legal eagle thing, where you peg something on like the air of like a living person. That's like the latest you can peg something. It's kind of like a meme shit, but yeah. Its development agreement was approved over the course of 2 public meetings held 2 weeks apart earlier this year. Both noticed in the local Orlando newspaper and attended by about a dozen residents and members of the media. No one from the governor's office was present at either meeting, according to the meeting minutes. In Wednesday's meeting, the board's special general counsel, Daniel Langley, walked through its legal arguments for nullifying the deal between Disney and the previous board member. I'm sorry, in the previous board, my bad. Oh yeah, the rule of perpetuities or whatever, which sounds incredibly fucking convoluted, but... He said the board had not provided the required public notice of its meetings and said the agreement was not properly approved by 2 municipalities within the district, the cities of Bay Lake and Lake Buena Vista. He also argued the previous amendments to Disney's long-term comprehensive plan were not properly vetted and approved by those 2 municipalities. The bottom line is that a development agreement has to be approved by the governing body of a jurisdiction, and that didn't happen from the cities that have jurisdiction. Langley said, former Florida Supreme Court Justice Alan Lawson, an attorney hired by the district, said that the old board attempted to act without legal authority to act. This is essentially about what it means to live and work in a county governed by the rule of law. Everyone must play by the same rules, he said. Disney was openly and legally granted unique and special privileges. That privilege of running its own government for a time, that era has ended. If you flip a coin and its heads, I'll tier 5. Let's go, baby! Fuck you. Didn't you argue with the guy on a panel who said the government had infinite money, but just said exactly that? No. Okay, the government doesn't have infinite money. Theoretically, if the government were to print infinitely, then the value of the dollar would go to 0, right? The government can't print an infinite amount of money. However, the federal government does have a wide wiggle room on our budget because we can print money. States cannot create their own currency and borrow against themselves like that. States have to sell bonds to raise money in other ways, right? So technically, the federal government does have unlimited money, but technically it doesn't have unlimited money because if it prints unlimited money, then the value of the money goes to 0, right? For states don't have the ability to create their own currency. They have to sell bonds and shit to raise money. The end of a decades-old agreement, the state legislature created the Reedy Creek Improvement District in 1967 and effectively gave Disney the power to control municipal services like power, water, roads, and fire protection around its Central Florida theme parks that didn't exist before Walt Disney and his builders arrived. But the special district also freed Disney from bureaucratic red tape and made it cheaper to borrow to finance infrastructure projects around its theme parks, among other significant advantages. That special arrangement, though criticized at times, was largely protected by state politicians as both Disney and Florida benefited from the tourism boom. The unlikely fracturing of Florida's relationship with its most iconic business started during the contentious debate last year over state legislation to restrict certain classroom instruction on sexuality and gender identity. Disney's then CEO, Bob Chapek, facing pressure from his employees, reluctantly objected to the bill, leading DeSantis to criticize the company. When DeSantis signed the legislation into law, Disney announced it would push for its repeal. DeSantis then targeted Disney's special governing powers. For DeSantis, who has built a political brand by going toe-to-toe with businesses he identifies as woke, the latest twist threatens to undermine a central pillar of his story as he lays the groundwork for a likely presidential campaign. Destiny, I know you're off the topic, but the NSA was absolutely the leader of cryptography until the 2000s at minimum. They added backdoors into everything, probably the ability to crack anything they'd contributed to. They probably don't have unique math, but they controlled cryptography by funding and undermining it for its own purposes. That could have been possible 20 years ago, sure. 20 or 30 years ago, sure, in the early advent of the internet. But not now, well, it's a multi-billion, billion dollar industry that's decentralized around the entire world, right? An entire chapter of his new autobiography is devoted to Disney, and the saga is well featured in the stump speech he has delivered around the country in recent weeks. Go find the magical backdoor. Oh, an AES or RSA or yeah. I mean, there's big encryption standards. We've got big encryption standards now that I don't even think would be broken by quantum computing theoretically, right? I feel like this is another example of something that I said earlier, where it seems like we become so politically fractured in this country that we can't even take credit for the things that are like the best about us anymore. I feel like now and now you've got Florida, DeSantis fighting with Disney, which is inarguably a historic and internationally relevant and front and center, like propagator of American culture, like a U.S. business and now even Florida, where Disney World exists, is fighting with Disney. Like, how sad is that? Like, how is that? Now, if you're in Florida and a Republican, how do you feel about like arguably the most important business that maybe has ever existed in your state? All the shit that Disney owns. Oh yeah, the new conservative boycott. Disney owns way too much shit. It's a little crazy. As anyone who's read my abstinence column here on Fox News Opinion could guess, my wedding is something that I've looked forward to for quite some time. After having tied the knot at the end of August, I can now say beyond all shadow of a doubt that it was everything I'd hoped and prayed that it would be since childhood. I'd also prayed to be bitten by a radioactive spider and develop sticky hands, but I was an idiot. Let me preface this column by saying this. My wife, I have to get used to saying that, and I not only waited sexually in every way. No, we didn't put the Bill Clinton and technically avoid sex. We didn't pull the Bill Clinton and do the technically avoid sex. But we didn't shack up as live-ins, and most importantly, we courted each other in a way that was consistent with our publicly professed values. We did it right. Feeling judged? I couldn't care less. You know why? Because my wife and I were judged all throughout our relationship. People laughed, scoffed, and poked fun at the young, celibate, naive Christian couple. We'd certainly never make it to the wedding without stupping. And if we did, our wedding night would be awkward and terrible, they said. Turns out, people couldn't have been more wrong. Looking back, I think the women saying those things felt like the floozies they ultimately were, and the men, with their fickle manhood tied to their pathetic sexual conquests, felt threatened. I think it's important to write this column, not to gloat, though I'll be glad to, but to speak up for all the young couples that have also done things the right way. When people do marriage right, they don't complain so much, and so their voices are silenced by the rabble of promiscuous charlatans peddling their pathetic worldview as progressive. Our wedding was perfect. Our wedding night was nothing short of amazing. I write this on a plane, heading into a tropical paradise with the most beautiful woman to have walked the planet Earth. I know everybody says that their bride was the most beautiful in the world. They're wrong, I win. I'd like to tell you a story of our morning after, however. One that transpired into one of the most glaring epiphanies I'd ever had. As my wife, again, still not used to that, and I ate breakfast at a local inn, we discussed how excited we were to start the rest of our lives together, how scary it was that everything was now so different. At the same time, we overheard the table next to us discussing their very own wedding from the night prior. What a coincidence. The thing is, nothing's really changed, the bride said. Puzzled, my wife asked, "Did you get married last night too?" "So did we." "Congratulations," the other dame said. "Yeah, we did, just last night." "Where's the groom?" My wife innocently scratched that, naively asked. "Oh, he's sleeping. There was no way he was coming out with me this morning." She paused and smirked. "Let's just say that he's got a lingering headache from a really good time last night." My heart sank. Firstly, that poor schmuck's good time was simply getting snookered. Not enjoying the company of close family and long-lost friends, with a clear head and a clean conscience. Not staring in awe at his beautiful new wife, wanting to soak in every glimmer of her eyes as she shot him heart-racing looks from across the dance floor. Not taking all the cheesy pictures as they cut the cake. Not even carrying her across the sweet threshold as they nervously anticipated their nightcap. He probably won't remember any of it. Instead, he got smashed. He was that guy at his own freaking wedding. Then I realized something. Our wedding was truly a once-in-a-lifetime event. It was a God's honest celebration of two completely separate lives now becoming one. Physically, emotionally, financially, and spiritually, everything that made us who we were individually was becoming what bonded us together. Our family traveled from far and wide to celebrate the decision of two young people to truly commit themselves to each other and selflessly give themselves to one another in a way that they never had before that very night. The people next to us that morning, well, theirs was just one big party. And the morning after, just another hangover. Our weddings were the same event in name only. They know it, and we know it. Do yours the right way. If you're young and wondering whether you should wait, whether you should just give in, become a live-in harlot/mimbo, and do it the world's way. If you're wondering whether all the mocking, the ridicule, the incredible difficulty of saving yourself for your spouse is worth it, let me tell you without a doubt that it is. Your wedding can be the most memorable day and night of your life, or just another party. Oops, did I just make a judgment? You're darn right I did. That was a good lesson in not judging other types of lifestyles from our recently divorced friend, Steven Crowder. Rip.
I have been living with a proverbial boot on my neck for going on years now. Since 2021, I've been living through what has increasingly been a horrendous divorce. Now, let me say on the outset, to be clear, there is no infidelity, any kind of physical abuse at all on either side. And no, this was not my choice. My then wife decided that she didn't want to be married anymore. And in the state of Texas, that is completely permitted. It's been the most heartbreaking experience.
Wait, what the fuck does that mean? What is the implication there? Does he think he should be allowed to force her to stay married if she doesn't want to be?
Into my life, what I consider to be want to be married anymore. And in the state of Texas, that is completely permitted. It's been the most heartbreaking experience of my life, what I consider to be my deepest personal failure. And just so you know, my opinions on parenting and families have not changed. I've always believed that children need a mom and a dad, that divorce is horrible. And I still believe that children need a mom and a dad and that divorce is horrible. But in today's legal system, my beliefs don't matter. In Texas, divorce is permitted when one party wants it, period. So for well over a year...
Wait, is there any state in the United States where it's not like that? Is that the case anywhere? Where, like, one party's forbidden from divorcing the other if they both don't want it? Like, no faults divorce? Are those still illegal in the United States? Wait, why do I ask you guys these questions? How many states no fault divorce? I don't know. 17 states in the U.S. are considered no fault states for divorce. These no fault divorce states are blah blah blah. Nebraska, baby. Oh, and Florida, I guess, because that's my state now too. I guess. Ugh. So is this saying that in 33 states you have to? I mean. I guess it depends on...
Obviously, living in a house where parents hate each other is better for the kids.
Oh, 33 U.S. states offer persons undergoing a divorce the option of no-fault divorce, but these states can also be considered fault states, as persons can choose to file for divorce in the traditional way of casting blame. Fault typically includes grounds for divorce, including adultery, abandonment, inability to engage in sexual intercourse, damn, being in jail, or cruelty. Cruelty, more specifically, causing arrest, is typically the most common grounds for fault divorce, and a fault, one or both can be at fault.